Hey, we're back. We made it through one episode. Oh my goodness. Allison, Jay, what's going on?
It was tight. First episode, I called it an experiment. And it was as much of an experiment, I think, for me watching myself than it was probably anything else. So yeah, we're back.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're newbies.
Well, you're not newbies. You already done one, so you're veterans now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are. We're experts.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we finally agreed upon is now we have a proper name for our show. It is now called People Are the Business with Allison, Jay, and myself. So Allison came up with a name.
Yep.
A little bit of help from AI.
Well, it's okay. Well, exactly. That's what we talked about first episode, right?
Yes. It was a help.
Excellent. Well, look, we're looking forward to many more episodes to come. I want to say thank you for everyone who has watched, who took the time to watch. And before the end of the show, we'll give you an email address now where you can provide feedback, comments, and suggestions. So looking forward to this. So today, we're going to be talking about People First Strategy Explained, how putting people first drives business growth on People Are the Business. So before the end, you're going to get 2 or 3 ideas that you can actually act on this week. And you'll know what People First Strategy actually means. So let me kick it off with Jay. So Jay, when you hear People First Strategy, what does it mean in the real world of plants, ops, and performance?
Well, operations have usually daily meetings, or maybe they have them every 2 days, or they have them weekly. And they go through a series of questions. And usually they start off with safety. Then they talk about quality, delivery, and cost. And if all those are green, you make money. But the People First strategy is about talking about something before safety. It's about people. So the simple question is, did everyone show up at work today? Yes, they did. Okay, good. That means we have our first string on the roster. Thank you very much. Oh, no? 2 people are away? Okay, who's covering? And what do we need to do to support them to have a good day? And that's where People First comes in play before safety. Because if they don't show up to work, we don't have to worry about their safety. I mean, we do, but you got to get them to work first. So the first question is around not necessarily safety. It's about who came to work today. If they didn't show up, why not? Do you know that employee from a personal perspective? Can you help them come to work or have fewer unplanned absences? So a lot of companies are kind of focused on safety, which is a very people first orientated strategy. This is about taking it maybe one step earlier and say, are they coming to work? If you have high absenteeism or high turnover, more than likely you've got some leadership challenges that people don't love to come to work. So when you ask that question first, it helps set the tone, because if you don't have them come to work, you can't make any money. And it's been shown that if they don't come to work and you put a substitute in, you lose 15% productivity off the top. So that's kind of how I would translate it from an ops perspective, is around, it's the first question. Did they come to work? If not, why not? How do we help them come to work? Or how do we help them go from unplanned absences to planned? Planned we can deal with.
So
It
Jay,
sounds like you're like going for root causes. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I go down a rabbit hole pretty quick. But yeah, it is another step towards root cause, where, like, why aren't they coming to work? So for example, we had a case, and I had a rock star VP of ops, and he was talking to me about an employee that wasn't showing up, and he was rock star because he was a people first leader, and he got into it, started talking to the employee, demonstrated to the supervisor how to talk to the employee about drawing out why he wasn't coming to work, and it was unplanned. His wife was pregnant. She had cancer. It's like, he didn't make any judgment. and he worked with that employee to move from unplanned absences to planned. And that employee will be with us forever because we didn't judge him. We didn't anyway. So yeah, it's about understanding your people, really, right?
So, Allison, from a CFO lens, how do you know a company is people first, not just talking about it?
I would say that there's certain things that you'll see. Like, so for myself as a fractional CFO, I'm working with a lot of different companies, and the clues that help me, kind of give me the clue that they're a people first business would be things like, um, training, development. Are they investing in training and development? Are they, what do the benefits plans look like? What are their travel costs? Are they spending money to bring employees in who might be in other locations, working remotely? Are they coming together as a team in person? Or are the leaders traveling out to visit the different locations where the employees are? Are they spending time with clients and even suppliers? Is that where some of the travel's coming from? I would say that, there's, they're spending in a way that shows that lives out their values.
I like how you you see it in the expenses in the accounting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I use other KPIs to determine whether or not we've got a challenge or not, absenteeism or turnover. But your lens, you see it in the expenses, in the accounting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting because I never thought of it. I would never have gone there to, make that assessment. Very cool.
Yeah, I'll add my spin on this a little bit, and it's more that when I'm bringing people, and a lot of people I work with are contractors, and it's funny because I will ask them questions that they're not used to about
Mm.
them. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like one of the
yeah.
questions, and especially when it comes to younger people, I'll ask them questions like, "Who's the smartest person you know and why?"
Mm.
And they're saying, "You're not asking me at all my technicals." No, I know you're pretty good at what you do. I just, who are you? And I want to find that out, because if I know what drives them,
Yeah.
my goal as a leader is to help them get something that I can help them with. Because the more I'm committed to them, ideally, the more they're going to be committed to what I'm doing. So as a leader, so to speak, I want to make sure that I'm people driven first, because again, it'll show up in so many different ways, whether it's balance sheet wise, spreadsheet wise, or performance wise, as both of you have been saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I stumbled into this line of questioning when I asked people, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years professionally? And they'd say, oh, I'd like to be a supervisor. I'd like to have this role, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked them, and I can't remember how I stumbled into this, but it was not too long ago. Then I said, where would you like to be in 3 to 5 years personally? And they said, huh, what do you mean by that? Well, do you want a new sled? Do you want a new ATV? And one of the people answered, she said, I'd like to be spiritually more connected. And I was
Wow.
like, huh, well, that is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. When you can make that type of connection and they know that you actually care about not just where they want to be from a work perspective, but where they want to be personally. And it just takes a simple question.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take much sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I stumbled into that.
I want to ask both of you, and I'll chime in also, where do leaders get this wrong most often?
Allison, what do you think?
Well, I was talking earlier about, making investments, right? Like investments in travel, investments in training and development and things like that. I think where maybe leaders might go wrong is having sort of a scarcity mentality where they're like, we can't make these investments. We have to, preserve cash. We have to, preserve profit. What's the ROI on these? Hard to say. And I know, Jay, you'll have thoughts on that, but I think it's very common. Like, that's where they go wrong. They just have this kind of scarcity, mindset and outlook. And so it makes them more reactive instead of being proactive.
Yeah, they kind of go the how much is it going to cost question as compared to what's the return on investment.
Right.
And yeah, very different for sure.
Or how much will it cost not to do it? Like,
Yeah,
nobody ever thinks about that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I myself, many years ago when I was in corporate, I was working in a company and the CEO was not a people person, but my direct report was a people person. And it was so challenging. And my direct report, when it was very emotional when he left, because I go, oh my gosh, like, I don't feel like being here anymore because I don't have any support.
It's interesting though, because not everyone has to be a people person in order to have a people first strategy. So if you can,
okay. You're going to blow some people's minds with that.
well, so if you can hardwire a question into a daily ops meeting that says, did everyone come to work? And then you ask, why? If that's hardwired into the questions every day, the person asking those questions doesn't need to be a people person because you've hardwired the question. You have to be careful on how you respond to the answers because, if your response is, oh, well, let's get labor relations involved. Yeah, that's no good. It's like, okay, well, why are they not coming to work? And they obviously don't love their manager maybe, and they don't like their work. So, but I think that you can hardwire some things into the structure that can kind of get people comfortable with those people first questions, I think.
But how is that not just like checking off a box? Like, I know there's some people that would say, oh, it sounds like you're just putting that in there so you check the box.
Yeah.
How do you actually make it like sincerely people first?
So the way usually I connect it to the equation. I said, okay, you're not a people first person. You're a tough guy. You're like, I want to make a lot of money. I tell you what, I'm going to beat you every day, all day. If I get my people to work and I have zero absenteeism, how's that sound? So you can make a lot of money by getting people to come to work every day, all day. And you're going to make a lot more than if you had 5 or 10% absenteeism on a daily basis, or you have turnover rates of 10 to 20%. So that's usually, I'll say, listen, you don't need to do it to be a nice person, but
you make the business case. That's what you're doing, right? Like you
want to make money. This is going to make you, what won't make you money is if you have, 5, 10, 15% in or turnover.
Okay.
It's just, and this comes into sometimes what makes me not cringe, but there's kind of a saying out there, how do you recruit and retain A players? Well, good luck in finding A players. Like, they're a unicorn. And who's to say you're an A leader? How about you focus on people's superpowers and blind spots, because we've all got them, and exploit the superpower in a role that they love to do. Okay. That to me is a little bit of a more realistic perspective than trying to find the unicorn out there, the A player and I assure you, I don't think I was ever categorizing it as an A player. Back when I was younger, maybe when I was older a little bit, but I didn't graduate from a high-end your university. So,
All right. Well, let's move on. But we want to just say, I just want to sum up here that people first strategy is how you design decisions, systems, and metrics around people, not just spreadsheets. So let's talk now about how people first drives growth. So Allison, I'm going to hand it off to you. Can you give a mini case of a time that a decision looked expensive short term, but paid off in margins, retention, and risk reduction?
So I'm gonna use an example that actually relates to myself and my firm. I have several people that, I am fortunate to call my mentors, people on this call, for example. But I actually have like a formal contractual arrangement with someone who is a professional mentor. And this gentleman started his firm by himself. He's got an accounting firm like I do. And, 35 years ago, and grew it from just himself to there's now 100 staff in like 7 offices across 2 provinces. So he's been really successful. And when I met him, it was just such a good fit. I knew that like I'd be able to learn so much, and we were aligned values wise. So, but it was not cheap, right? You find that person, and the offering is just more than what I had in the moment. But I will tell you that I look at it as an investment. There's a contract, there was a negotiation. I planned it out. There are spreadsheets. Don't question that. There are spreadsheets. But if it was just on paper, looking at like my P&L for the first year, it wouldn't have made sense. But you take that investment mindset and you go, this is going to pay off in so many different ways down the road. It's going to make me a better leader. It is going to lift the skills of my team and provide opportunities for them because they get to spend time with this person as well. It benefits our clients because we get better at what we do. And ultimately, it's going to, all of that will fall to the bottom line and make us more profitable. So,
Nice.
Just a straightforward example of having an investment mindset versus a scarcity mindset. If you were just looking at it on paper, it would have been not the right move without the context and the future vision.
Nice. I'm going to flip it over to you, Jay. A brief before after story, one ops example where listening to people and redesigning process improved quality, safety through output. Can you give us an example? I'm sure you have one or two.
okay. So you said brief, eh? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, brief it is. Not too long ago, led a company, high turnover, high absenteeism, partially related to COVID. And it was like all hell was breaking loose and companies were struggling with people, COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So we had high turnover and our employees wanted to make more money. But in that time, it was tough because things were not good. So we talked about our recruitment, and we saw $1 billion companies doing signing bonuses. And it's like, okay, we're not going to steal those welders because they get a signing bonus. But signing bonuses never felt right to me. It's like, wait a second here. Instead of giving money back to the employees who are loyal and staying with us, we're giving this money to a new person. So what I did was I just created a safe zone for my senior leadership team to talk about referral bonuses. And they talked about it and they said, yeah, we used to do them. I used to give like $300 to $500. And I said, okay, that's pretty cool. I said to HR though, how much would it cost to get a recruiter to bring in a welder? Oh, 20 to 30%. Oh, so you're talking like $15,000 to $20,000 to recruit a welder. Yeah, about that. I said, and I knew this was going to blow up my senior leadership team, and some people were going to start vibrating. But I said, what if we paid a welder 15 to 20,000 to bring in a referral bonus? Well, of course, the room erupted, and they said that's crazy. I said, yeah, but that's what we're going to pay a recruiter. And so eventually, I knocked it down, and it's like, okay, let's get down to something reasonable. But I think we offered 3,000. And it's like, oh, so you mean that the employee gets $3,000 and probably they're going to recruit a friend or a relative who they might carpool with, who actually might help the turnover or the absenteeism rate drop down because they feel guilty if they don't show up, and the turnover rate. So our turnover rate and our absentee rate dropped like a stone.
Wow.
It just dropped like a stone. And, I've told people and I've joked with fellow CEOs, I said, I'm hunting in your pond. I'm fishing in your pond. And here's how I'm going to do it. I like your pond. I want your employees, and I'm going to fish in your pond. And I'm going to do it with referral bonuses. So in that time period, less than 2 years, we went from 24 million US to 38 million US.
Wow.
And our EBITDA went from 2.4 to 4.8 in less than 2 years.
Oh.
And so it's like, okay, so you can do it because you want to be nice and good to the employees, but you can also do it to make a lot of money.
So I want to bounce off of both you. Well, first of all, with Jay, one of them, you said a lot of good things there, but I liked how you said you created a safe zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that most of what I do with meetings, especially discussing a problem, the number one thing, you got to create a safe zone. Because if you don't, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're smart, or they're not going to tell you anything, or they're going to tell you something little. So whether it be on the shop floor, whether it be the boardroom, relationships and creating that safe zone is critical, because if a CEO doesn't create that safe zone, you're not getting the power of all your leaders as far as their inputs. So, and I'm not sure that I've always created a safe zone, but I certainly understand the value of that safe zone.
Yeah.
For sure.
100%. Allison, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I love the safe zone. I feel like Jay's right. Like you need to have people, you need to have trust in the room to get the best out of everybody. But yeah, I still think, there are people that are gonna, think people first is,
Yeah.
I don't know, fluffy, right?
Yep.
So Jay, like you're absolutely making the business case, and it's both. I mean, I think there's an element of, you need to value people. So if you are valuing profits over people, and you're only doing the people things for profits, I think that people are going to figure that out.
Especially these days, right?
Yeah.
Especially people are going to figure out these days. Like Jay said, people are smart. And a lot of the people that we encounter, they've been around the block once or twice, right? They know what time it is. So you don't want to play with them, because again, it's so hard to replace that resource. If you have to replace that resource, it's not only time, but it's also money.
So let me ask though,
Yep.
Is it a bad thing if the people know the only reason why the leader's doing it, people first, is to make money? Is that a bad thing? Because
I don't know.
so
I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes.
Well, so here's a thought. If they're over here where there are no people first, they could care less about people, and we want to get them over here, maybe them doing it just because it makes them more money moves them.
Yeah.
And then what I find is it moves them, and then eventually they say, damn, I like coming to work a little bit more than I used to. And and then they get hooked.
Mhm.
So that's something, any movement, and that gets them hooked to kind of move,
Mhm.
is like, it doesn't feel half bad. At least I got movement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think from hearing our conversation in this section, like being people first, it results in lower turnover, higher productivity, better decisions from frontline input, and stronger customer experience. Any disagreement?
not at all.
No.
Somebody said to me recently, a smart guy, Christian, we talked about work-life balance, and he said, we both like our work. And so why don't we try and have other employees like our work? But then he talked about, it's not really work-life balance, it's work-life rhythm. It's
Mm.
like, and
Yes.
it's like,
You know,
yeah,
someone's, if I interrupt, an associate of mine doesn't like work-life balance. He says work-life integration.
yeah.
Mm.
If you really love your work, then work is not that much different than personal, right?
Well, so just an interesting aside for people. We had a pre-meeting before we recorded this live, and Allison goes, "Well, I don't want to put any more work on you, Dr. Vibe. I said, "Well, this is a
Yeah.
get to, not a got to." So,
Yeah.
that's what I want to share with leaders. If you can get your employees to think what they're doing is a get to, not a got to, and they want to come to work, it's, that old phrase is, it's like a family, that sort of thing, because you want to get them to know, like, and trust you, and then you can find out what they want. You want to
Yeah.
have that trust, that get to know them, because they're not robots. So there's enough robots out there, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So I
Sure.
think it's just really important out there. So I'm going to transition now to making people first real in your company. And our goal is to give our viewers and listeners some concrete starting moves. So we're going to start off with one move answer. So Jay, what is a systems process move that a CEO, founder, or senior leader watching this could start tomorrow?
They have their routine meetings. At the beginning of the meeting, make a comment about who's here, who's not. Hey, looks like we got the A team here today. Right on. Or, hey, looks like we've got Becky as the designate for Victor in today at our meeting. Welcome, Becky. It's just recognizing who's here and who's not. Easiest way, and if you do that all the time, then maybe you slide towards, oh, well, Becky's away or Victor's away because he's training. Oh, cool. So then it's like not just about whether they're here or not, it's about, oh, are we developing them? So easy questions that will take up maybe 30 seconds to a minute of your meeting time is usually pretty easy to kind of put into play.
Nice. So Allison, what's a finance or metrics move for a senior leader watching this they could start tomorrow?
What they could start tomorrow?
Yeah.
I would say maybe not complete tomorrow, but my thought is, do you have a budget? And who's accountable for that budget? And do they have they had any input? So if you don't have one, okay, that's a whole thing right there. But is the budget something that the owner or CEO came up with on their own and hasn't, had any, collaboration with their team? Or is it something that you've sat down with your team and gotten their input on? And if neither one is, necessarily right or wrong, depending on where your business is at. But if you have a budget, have you shared some of those key metrics with your team, some of those targets with your team? Again, to get input, or at least to have them understand where you're coming from, why these targets get set. What are your goals for the next 3 months or
Mhm.
the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And it can open the door to that conversation where it becomes a little more collaborative, and perhaps you're delegating some accountability to some team members for some things, and they, if you're going to do that, they should have some input, and then you're having, that meeting of the minds and coming up with goals that now you have something to measure against, and people have something to shoot for and to work towards.
And it's kind of it sounds like it's kind of like delegation of authority, where
Maybe.
in
Yeah.
the big companies they talk about that and they have different levels.
Mm.
But yeah, it's giving a little bit more freedom for them to make.
Yeah.
It's controlling. You're still controlling because
Mhm.
you decide on how much. But
Yeah, you put boundaries, right?
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, very cool.
yeah.
Yeah. A story's coming up to me. I believe, hopefully, it'll relate to what we're chatting about today. There's a gentleman named Mike Krzyzewski. So, any people who know basketball,
Yeah,
for many years, he was a coach of the Duke Blue Devils, won many NCAA champions, also coached Olympic teams. And many years ago, when I had hair, he
Mhm.
came up and spoke in Toronto, and he spoke for 3 hours. He only spoke 30 minutes about basketball. The rest of the time, he spoke about people, relationships,
relationships.
etc. And someone asked him a question and he gave the answer to it that I've never heard anyone else give. And someone asked him, Coach K, when do you know you've done a good job with your team? And he said, when I see my players coaching each other, I know I've done a good job.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I love that.
So he put that people aspect so much that they were coaching each other. He could just sit back and watch.
There's another reference in regards to that, relationship. There's a book called Extreme Ownership, and it's done by Navy SEALs and JACO. And so I went to some training that was associated with that book, and we had a couple of Navy SEALs guys up there talking about execution and excellence and things like that. And they said the number one thing was relationship. So kind of getting back to Mike Krzyzewski, or what? Sorry, can't say his name correctly, but
Krzyzewski.
yeah, so that's it. So to the point of where he talked about relationships, the Navy SEALs said the number one thing is not technical, it's not communication, it is relationship. So all the Navy SEALs teams, they know the husbands, they know the daughters, the sons, the cousins, the nieces, and nephews. They know that person and they have a relationship with that person, and that's what makes them excellent.
Hmm.
And for myself, if you're a leader and you want to be people first, a quick suggestion I would have is that in your next team meeting or one-on-one, ask, what would you like to talk about today?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a great way to start any meeting.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this too for all of us. What resistance should leaders expect when they shift to a people first strategy, and how do they handle it?
Allison, your thoughts.
I can jump
if I see it faster than you, Allison, then you go first and I go second.
I can jump in first if you two want some time.
Yes, Dr. Vibe, go for it.
Well, we live in a world that a lot of people don't think you're being honest and real when you're going to a people first strategy. So as Allison said a little bit earlier, you're going to have to invest that time to get sometimes that buy-in. And it may take time. Because we don't know where our frontline, our employees, where they're coming from, not only personally, but professionally. They may have some bad experiences. So it is not a lot. There's an old Frank Zappa album called Overnight. It's not an overnight sensation. It's going to take some time, and they're going to be watching you. So that could be some of the pushback these days in the society that, they just want me to work. They don't care about what I'm doing. So be ready for that initial potential pushback.
I would agree with that 100%. So if this, podcast triggers something with, one of the people that watches it, they're going to start percolating in their head. Oh, I like that idea. Okay, cool. And then they're going to start, coming up with challenges and ways to implement. And then they're going to deploy it maybe in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And they ask the question, so is everyone at work today? And I think the resistance is going to be, that's the first time you've asked that question before. So it's like, I'm like shocked. I'm not sure what to answer. So you have to be empathetic that you've been thinking about this for a few days, a week, a month. You've dropped this new bomb on them. They're like, they're going to react. So that might be some of the resistance. So be patient and be empathetic that, ask the same question every day. Be patient with them understanding the details and just slowly start to kind of tighten it down. But don't worry about getting to the finish line in one day.
Yeah.
That's just going to create chaos. And a lot of people aren't going to trust you. Right?
Yeah, trust, right? It's all about trust.
Yeah.
Allison?
I like what you said about Jay, about that you've had all this time to think about it and they're hearing it for the first time. So yeah, context. I also think that when there's resistance, sometimes a way to break that down is just to be very open and explain. I feel like the things that we've been doing haven't been working and I'd like to try something new with you. Invite them in, and say, acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. You don't know how this is going to go, but you're open to making mistakes. And I think that can be something that's hard for a lot of people. Like,
agreed.
I look back over my career and I think when I first started out, I was all like not wanting to admit mistakes because I was junior and I wanted to, climb the ladder, whatever. And maybe the culture that I was working in, mistakes were not, that was not the way you did things. But you grow up and you live and you learn and you make mistakes, and you can either hide them or you can admit them and learn from them. And I have found in my experience that it's not a weakness to admit that you've made a mistake. It's actually a strength. And therefore anticipating that mistakes will be made and extending that grace to other people and giving them permission, and encouraging them to come to you if they feel they've made a mistake, then, it just kind of all builds that trust. So back to the T word.
All right. We're going to close it out with a quick fire questions for both of you.
All right.
So quick answers. All right. First sentence. Finish this sentence. People first strategy fails when leaders
aren't open to change.
Okay. Jay?
Don't believe that it can make them money.
Ooh.
Like, I think a lot of them just think that it's a nice to have and it's not a requirement. And I'll go back to some big companies.
Like a valid strategy.
Like GM. Like, if I didn't like somebody, I couldn't fire them. I had to prove that my leadership skills were good enough. Why? Because they know that not having that people first type expectation will lose the money. We can't afford absenteeism. We can't afford turnover. I mean, you can, but the first company that doesn't, is going to make more money than you are. So I think it's when people just don't, when the execs just don't believe that it can make them money.
And then one other quick thing for both of you. One myth about people first leadership you'd love to kill.
That it's not conducive to success. I mean, kind of what Jay's been saying. I think
I just say ditto. Like, I don't know. It kind of feels like the same answer.
Yeah. Okay.
When people don't think that it can provide value.
All right. Well, that is a wrap. And we'd like to invite our viewers to drop the definition of a people first strategy and one thing that they're facing. And how can they do that? Well, as I said, we've got an email address now. So if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at info@peoplearethebusiness.com. And also, if this has helped you, if you like it, share it and subscribe to People Are the Business on our YouTube channel. So we want to say thank you to everyone, as always, for hanging out with us. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace, and we'll see you soon. Be well.